Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take the opportunity to recognize the head table, specifically the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, our prominent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture here in Nevis, Mr. Huey Sargent, and of course our guest speaker, Mr. Tross. Let me also welcome my very good friend, Bishop Ron Collins. I teased him because we pressed him into service to say prayer, but who better to pray for us than a bishop? So Ron Collins, welcome to Nevis and your entire team. Let me recognize as well my cabinet colleagues and all of you who are here and who are all stakeholders and people invested in agriculture. Agriculture is something that is near and dear to me. It is perhaps the abiding lesson of the COVID-19 pandemic that we decided as a government that we no longer could just pay lip service to agriculture. That there was a need, in fact an urgent need, that we became self-sufficient in terms of our food supply. And that is a goal that we have set for ourselves, and the limited resources that we had available to us at the Nevis Island Administration, we decided that the majority of those resources should be put to agriculture. And I can tell you that in the cabinet that I'm privileged to lead at this point in our history, we had a very robust discussion, and the concern that we had in our cabinet was, what happened if the pandemic got to a point where tropicals stopped coming? And if tropicals stopped coming over at the Long Point port or at the port in St. Kitts, what would happen to us? And it's a very real concern. It may sound simple, but it's a very real concern. And so we decided then and there that the resources that we had available had to be put towards greater food security. And I'm very proud of the effort that we've made thus far. And my purpose for being here as the Premier of Nevis is to say that if there's one thing we've learned from COVID and one lesson that we might take away is that we must be more self-sufficient in terms of our food supply. That the dependence that we've had over the years on imported food, sometimes of dubious quality, that we must try our best to replace those imports with locally produced food. And I believe that the Minister Jeffers, has the necessary dynamism. In fact, he has now taken on the role of Federal Minister of Agriculture, and I think we're now seeing the synergies between St. Kitts and Nevis that ought to serve us well going forward. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what did we do? We provided a package to our farmers. We said we would have free seeds, free seedlings, free fertilizer, free water. We provided free land preparation. We went so far as to provide free fencing wire. To our farmers, we provided feed. We provided to our fishers fish pot wire. We tried in various ways to provide the tools that our farming community would need to enhance production. We did something also which was perhaps unusual, innovative. We offered the same concessions to what we call our backyard farmers. So if you had a little piece of land that you were doing something, not commercially, we said that you had a contribution to make as well. And so even those individuals were allowed to benefit. It came at a cost. But as the PS here has said, naturally we must invest if we must get a return. And while it wasn't sufficient, I reminded him that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so if he got more, we would expect more. But he has put it correctly, that just like the biblical admonition, we must do what we can with what we get. And so the money that has been allocated to agriculture this year, we are hopeful that those professionals who serve us in agriculture, both those in government and those in the private sector, can use those resources to get us closer to where we want to be, which is sustaining ourselves in terms of food. I believe that this particular event, the third year now, is an important event. It demonstrates the innovation that we're seeing from the minister and his team, because it tells us that early in each year we have an opportunity to bring stakeholders together to discuss not only where we were, where we are, but also where we hope to be insofar as agriculture is concerned. And I think that that is important. It demonstrates that agriculture is taking its rightful place as an important undertaking for us as an island and as a country. I am hopeful that in my lifetime, we can get to a point where we would have substituted most of these imports that we get now, that we would get to a point where our people are truly eating local, buying local. And I want to take a moment to just emphasize that. Speakers before me have touched on it. But our farming community and our farmers in particular are looking to farming as a livelihood. They need to feed their families. They need to send their children to school. The only way they can do that is if we as a people buy their produce. And it irks me, I confess, when I see substandard produce in the supermarkets being sold ahead of our locally produced fruits and vegetables. Just yesterday I had a conversation with someone who said to me, you go to our supermarkets, you see grapes, apricots, peaches. You see any mango, any guineas, any local fruit? If you see oranges, tell yourself that they're imported. We have to get to a consciousness in our country where we say we must substitute our own for those imports. As I look across the audience here, I see someone like Mr. Lupinacci. Mr. Lupinacci, welcome. Richard Lupinacci. He's been a friend of agriculture for a very long time. And one of the things that I've always admired about him, I had not intended to include it in my comments until I saw you, but since I've seen you, is that he's the proprietor of the Hermitage restaurant, and they pride themselves in terms of their menu in utilizing local products. So if you go there for their famous Wednesday night pig roast, tell yourself the pig is not from Miami. The pig might be from down the road. Local pig. I think these things are important. And our people have demonstrated that where the necessary stimulus is given, where the necessary encouragement is given, that we can make progress. We look at what we've done thus far with pork production, for example. Yes, there's more that can be done. Yes, we still have a problem that pork is coming into the country and is being sold more cheaply sometimes than our local pork. But I think our people need to get to a level of consciousness where they say, you know, even if that pork that comes in from Brazil or wherever is 50 cents cheaper, I know that the quality that I'm getting in Nevis is vastly superior. And as a result of that, I'm prepared to pay the extra 50 cents for the better quality and to support my brother or sister down the road who's depending on that to feed his family. And that is really how we have to look at it. We need really a renaissance in terms of our thinking, in terms of our approach, to ensure that our people support our local farmers, so that farmers do not have the problem that they have complained about of producing and then having their food rot because they have no market. And in that regard, I can tell you that my government is very serious about talking to our hotels, talking to our restaurants, talking to our supermarkets, and saying to them that if product is available locally, then that must get first preference. I think it's a very simple thing. That the big hotels must follow the example of the Hermitage. That people coming in to visit with us, to vacation with us, actually would like to taste what we have available on the island. The local product, because it is superior in quality. If you go to the supermarket right now, you pick up a piece of chicken, you pick up some beef, you pick up a piece of fruit. Most of us, maybe some of you are more conscious than I am, but most of us, let me speak for myself, I have no idea where that piece of chicken or piece of fruit came from. I have no idea how long ago it was produced. Sometimes, you know, the supermarkets are clever, they stamp on it fresh. But fresh when? It might have been fresh 2 weeks ago. When, on the other hand, we produce something locally, you drive by, you see the farmer at work in the river, at potworks, you see them. You can even see the crops as they come up from planting to maturity. You know and understand what it is you're getting. But we have to support our local farmers. I will end by speaking for a moment about the innovation that we have been seeing in agriculture. I see that Mr. Truss is here, Mackie, my good friend. And he has really been a pioneer and a leader in that area. Because what I'm seeing now is that our traditional farmers, farming in the traditional way, 2 acres of land, plowing, drip lines, the usual. But we're also seeing farmers now who are saying, listen, we want to use more technology. We want to use hydroponics. We want to use the shade house technology. And we are told that the shade houses can produce quite a substantial amount with a smaller footprint in terms of land space. So on an island the size of Nevis, where naturally land is limited, shade house technology might really provide us with a good solution to ramp up production without having to have thousands and thousands of acres of land available. And Mackie has led that charge. But what I have seen happening is that a lot of young people now, young university graduates, you know, when I was a boy, they say only old people used to go into agriculture. I'm sure all of you have heard it, so I'm not saying anything that is bad or wrong. That is how we were taught. As a boy, I was born on Hanley's Road. If I ever dared to tell my mother that I wanted to be a farmer, she would beat me from now to next Sunday. Because the idea was that farming was hard work, it was backbreaking work, it was work that didn't give any reward. We need to change that. And when I see youngsters fresh out of university coming back and saying, listen, I'm getting into farming as a commercial venture, because when we look at the numbers, we look at the level of importation, we look at the dollar value, we start to understand that farming has money in it. The PS said that most of us have 3 meals a day. Some have more than 3. But most of us have 3 meals a day. Imagine, therefore, that food, like air, like water, critical to our survival. So if you're in the production of something that is critical for your survival, it tells you that people would buy it. And so farming is a natural commercial undertaking. And when I look at and I hear the numbers, $20 million of food. And these are foods, not the peaches and the apricots, but foods that we can produce being imported. And you start to think about it and say that the largest companies in the Federation, some of them are not generating $20 million worth of sales in a year. So if you put that in context and you say $20 million worth of food, what if you can slowly chip away at that? Next year we bring it down to 18, next year down to 15, and then to 10. You realize that you have $10 million circulating in our local economy. $10 million in the pockets of our local farmers. You could imagine what the multiplier effect of that could be for little Nevis or little St. Kitts and Nevis. That is the way we must start to think. And when we talk to our youngsters, rather than doing what my mom did years ago and tell you that's hard work and you're not going to make any money, to start to help them to understand that farming can provide a livelihood, farming can be something that is commercially viable. And I believe that the government is more than prepared to provide the necessary support in that regard. So I end by encouraging all of you. I want you to have a good conference today. Regrettably, I will not be able to stay with you all day, but I certainly had to be here so that you understand that from the top of government and all the way through, agriculture is important to us, food security is important to us, nutritious food is important to us, and we must not lose the lesson of COVID-19, that we must produce more, eat more, buy local, eat local, and support our agricultural industry. So I wish Agenda 2021 all the success, and I want to thank all the workers in agriculture. I know sometimes you feel perhaps unappreciated. I want you to know that you are appreciated. Extension officers, livestock officers, all of you, veterinary officers who go out and make this possible, that we will continue to provide every support that we can to ensure that Nevis and the wider Federation get to a point where we are sustainable and self-sufficient in terms of food. Thank you, and may God bless all of you.